Welcome to Hidden Gems, the show that brings you light to movies you may not have heard of. I'm your host, John Q. So, with the new Godzilla movie coming out next month, I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about Godzilla's distinguished competitor, Gamera. More specifically, I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about the 1990s Gamera Trilogy. Now, a little bit of history about Gamera. During the 1960s, Gamera started off as more or less as a knockoff, as a way to kind of leech off of the money that Godzilla was making with the Godzilla franchise growing as fast as it was in Japan. Now, Gamera really stands out from Godzilla in a lot of ways. I mean, other than the fact that they're both two big giant reptilian monsters, there's several other differences. The first notable one being that Gamera is a giant tortoise with tusk. The second one is probably the most notable. Once the tortoise moves his arms into his body, all of a sudden he can propel himself into the air by firing almost like a jet proportioned fire through his legs and then fly into the air. That was a little bit tough to describe, but once you see it, you'll know what I mean. So, anyways, I want to talk about today is the Gamera Trilogy. Now, this I happened to come across in Target, and I have to say it's fantastic. It is a nice little reboot of the series. It is more or less, it's like, if you want to say like all the older Gamera movies were like, I guess the best way I compare, okay, the only way I can kind of compare this would be comparing it to say like Batman. Alright, let's say this Gamera Trilogy is the equivalent of Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. What makes this trilogy stand out from all the other Gamera movies is the fact that it is considerably less campy than all the other movies before it, and it's a lot darker than all the other movies before it. Now, with that said though, this movie is still pretty campy, and it is still pretty silly. I mean, when your main character is a giant flying turtle that can breathe fire, you can't take yourself too seriously. But, however, I will say though that they did a really good job of rebooting it. The first one in the series is pretty much just reintroducing Gamera, kind of like the Batman Begins of the series, where, okay, you're introduced to Gamera for the first time, the world has never met Gamera before, now you see Gamera, now he introduces himself, and he has to fight off these horde of bat-like monsters called the Gaios, which are wreaking havoc all over Japan. And it does a pretty good job. It doesn't really touch up too much on his origin other than they think that Gamera is a prehistoric monster. Other than that, it's still pretty much a mystery as to where Gamera came from and what Gamera is. And it's actually pretty cool. I mean, the monsters look really good. The effects are actually really good, especially for the 90s. They're really good effects. I would say, you know, this one, the first one, I would definitely give it a good A. You know, in terms of quality, in terms of story, in terms of acting, it is fantastic. It is a good starting point. I will say this. This is an excellent starting point for the series. If you don't know anything about monster movies, this is a good one to start with. So if you're interested, start with Gamera Guardian of the Universe, the first one. Now going on to the second one is pretty good. It's pretty decent, but it is more or less the weakest of the trilogy. This is what I would call the Dark Knight Rises of the series, whereas it kind of went a little low here, but it's still entertaining. It still has a lot to enjoy. I mean, in this one, Gamera is fighting a horde of insects called the Legion. They're trying to take over the world, and they have a giant monster that's actually controlling them, and Gamera has to fight that. So there's not really much meat to it. You know, it's just the whole movie is just really just about Gamera trying to fight this monster. Of course, well, all the movies are about Gamera trying to fight a monster, but this one is just there's really no substance to it. It's just setting up for all the fight scenes. Now, it is pretty violent. It's got some pretty cool monster scenes in it. So, I mean, it's definitely worth checking out. But one thing I will say about the second one is that if you miss it and jump over to the third one, you're not going to be missing too much. That's all I'm going to say. Now, the third one, now this is the one that everybody has to see. It is Gamera: The Revenge of Iris. This one is definitely the Dark Knight of the series. This one is the best one of the series. I just loved it from start to finish. What this one does is it explores what happens if a giant monster fight actually happened. So, like, in the movie, you see that this girl is just pissed off at Gamera. She hates him with a passion. And you're like, why does she hate Gamera with a passion? Well, at the very beginning of the movie, you see a flashback to the very first movie where, Gamera is fighting the monster from the first movie. And he walks through a building and accidentally kills her parents. So in the middle of the fight, Gamera kills some innocents by accident. I mean, it's completely an accident. But she still hates Gamera because of it. So afterwards, later on in the movie, she discovers this monster and starts raising it as her own in order for it to kill Gamera. So, there's that. So she's basically playing her revenge. However, this is where it gets crazier. In the movie, Gamera is also fighting a bunch of Gaios monsters that have come back after the first movie. And one of the Gaios brings him into a heavily populated city. And unfortunately, unlike other monster movies where they evacuate people and everybody's out, once everybody gets out, it's all free-for-all. No, this one, Gamera and the monster just go right at it, and there's everybody in the city, and they can't get out. So there's a scene where Gamera breathes out fire, and it unfortunately kills a whole bunch of people. I mean, they're stepping on people, they're knocking buildings down. I mean, people are freaking dying while watching this. And it's crazy. I've never seen anything like that in a monster movie before. Maybe with the exception of the first Godzilla, but not this intense. And it just explores, now the country's afraid of Gamera just as much as they're afraid of the monster. Okay, I mean, you have this hero who's trying to protect you, but how's he protecting you when he's killing everybody while trying to protect you? So it explores those consequences of Gamera's actions, and explores whether or not Gamera is really a hero, or if maybe he's just a misunderstood villain. It's just crazy. To be honest, this is my favorite out of the whole trilogy. It is the deepest, darkest one, and is more so a direct follow-up of the first one, because more of the characters from the first movie appear in this one than, say, the second movie. Actually, I don't think any characters from the second movie appear in this one, except for the ones that appeared in the first movie. But for this one, I would definitely rate, the first one I rated an A. The second one I would say is a B, just a solid B. This one is an A+. The third one is definitely a high A+. You can grab this at Target or Amazon. I'll send an Amazon link in the description. Other than that, was my episode. So if you have any suggestions for hidden gems or whatnot, just write in the comments below. Other than that, please subscribe. Have a good one. Till next time.